I've been forwarded the following information and I've been asked to share it with people as soon as possible, just given the importance of it and the possible ramifications of this information. It's a WikiLeaks document in relation to a TISA agreement. And the TISA is the Trades in Services Agreement. And it talks about privatisation of national assets and natural resources. And when we're talking about privatisation, what we're talking about is putting it into private hands, which means private profit. So I'm going to read out this document that was sent to me. Secret TISA deal puts public services at risk around the world. Original publication date 19th of June 2014. Source wikileaks.org/TISA-financial. WikiLeaks today released secret draft text from the Trade in Services Agreement negotiations that confirms the concerns first raised by the global trade union Public Services International in the recent groundbreaking report, TISA versus Public Services. Fronting themselves as the really good friends of services, a group of 50 countries representing an estimated 70% share of the world's trade in services are secretly negotiating the TISA. This deal will open up a wide range of public services to be sold permanently for private profit. This massive trade deal will put public healthcare, childcare, postal, broadcasting, water, power, transport and other services at risk. The TISA will lock in the privatizations of services, even in cases where private service delivery has failed, meaning governments can never return water, energy, health, education or other services to public hands. The TISA will also restrict a government's right to regulate stronger standards in the public's interest. For example, it will affect environmental regulations, licensing of health facilities and laboratories, waste disposal centres, power plants, school and university accreditation and broadcast licences. The proposed deal will also restrict a government's ability to regulate key sectors including financial, energy, telecommunications and cross-border data flows. The TISA will specifically limit the ability of governments to regulate the financial services industry at exactly the time when the global economy is still recovering from a crisis caused by financial deregulation. Responding to today's leak, Public Services International General Secretary Rosa Pavanelli says, "This agreement is all about making it easier for corporations to make profits and operate with impunity across borders. The aim of public services should not be to make profits for large multinational corporations. Ensuring that failed privatizations can never be reversed is free market ideology gone mad." The secrecy surrounding these negotiations to extend controversial GATS arrangements into a wide range of areas previously rejected is anti-democratic in the extreme. If our governments are doing nothing wrong, why are they hiding these texts? Pavanelli adds, "The attempts by governments still reeling from the global economic crisis to further deregulate the financial system shows that our trade ministers really have been captured by large corporate interests. When you understand this, you understand why the texts are being kept secret. This is a bad deal for people and our planet. We demand that the texts be released for public scrutiny now." So that's the document that was sent to me. It's a WikiLeaks document on the Trade and Services Agreement negotiations that are going on. So far in Ireland, we already know that our oil is in private hands. It's in the hands of Shell. Our forests are used to produce cash crops, monoculture cash crops. They're not used. Culture does not redevelop the forest, so our forests are privatized. And now, today, we have the privatisation of our water supplies. Now, the official line is that our water supplies are not being privatised because they're still being controlled by the government. But documents have surfaced, and they're available on Tirnaseer and in other places, that prove that IrishWater is a private company limited by shares. And I'm going to play a phone call for you to the Irish Competition Authority, which proves that the water supplies in Ireland are being privatised.
Competition Authority, please hold while we connect your call. Competition Authority, hello?
Good afternoon. I just had a couple of queries about competition law in Ireland. This is the Competition Authority for, and so would you guys would you have control or managing competition in Ireland, or what is it that you do there?
What we would do is make sure that competition operates in the marketplace in a free way, in a lawful way.
So, if there was something happening in an industry where there was like a monopoly or something, would the Competition Authority have power to do something about that?
It isn't illegal to have a monopoly. What's illegal is to have an abuse of a dominant position. So it can be a company that's dominant on the market that is abusing its dominance.
Okay.
And there are a variety of ways that companies can do that. Have you got something specific in mind?
Well, I was just curious about how the company IrishWater would affect competition law, because I know that with Bord Gáis that they had to open up the gas market a couple of years ago because of the EU.
Yeah.
So that's why you have flow gas. But with IrishWater, is that not like the same thing? But they're just the only company that are going to be doing that. So.
Yeah. Now at the moment, you see, it's not wrong for them to have a dominant position, as I was saying before, but it would be wrong if they were abusing their dominant position. Now the thing is, the authority has already made submissions in relation to opening up the market to introduce more competition, and it has called for more participants in the market so that there's more competition for consumers.
And that's in relation to the water supply, that there should be more competition.
That's right, yeah, the very same issue, yeah.
So is that that's essentially going to privatise the water by allowing outside companies, private companies, to come in and basically operate within the market, and I believe
as competitors. Well, I don't know if they're going to privatise it. I don't know how that part of it is going to work, but I do know that they're looking at other service providers who will supply water, and I don't know how the market's going to look when they implement those things in the future, but I'm sure it will happen in the future.
If it's not a state body, then it will presumably be a private interest of some kind. And I thought that the whole issue with IrishWater was that they weren't privatising the water, but this sounds like if they have a dominant position or if they're abusing it, then they can be forced to open up the market, which is going to allow anybody who has the means to come in and sell water to the Irish people to do that. Is that not kind of a concern?
You see, well, first of all, we're worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, and secondly, there needs to be a regulator. I think you can't have a number of regulators. There does need to be a regulator. I don't know how the market is structured so that new operators can come in and supply those services, because I haven't actually read the document that suggested the changes in the market for other, operators to provide those services. So I don't know.
To protect the Irish water to protect the water supplies of Ireland from being privatised, would the Competition Authority not be able to take an injunction against IrishWater to prevent the future privatisation of water? Because if nobody has a dominant position over it, then we can just keep it as it was before.
No, well, the thing is,
services.
Well, the regulator, it wouldn't be seen as dominance unless it was abusive dominance. But the thing is, if there are water providers or, in certain areas, just like it is in the UK market, say for electricity services or for gas or for water and utilities over there, they've privatised a lot of those, and the markets work quite well when they're regulated.
So it is
and
privatised.
There's no reason why it couldn't be, the same thing here,
Yeah, well, it just seems very kind of that everything seems to be getting privatised now, and it just seems to be like that the national assets that were held in trust by the government through the constitution are just being sold off to private builders. Are you agreeing with that? Yeah.
Well, I agree that there are assets being sold off, but one of the reasons why is because it's introducing competition to make prices lower and to create innovation in the market, so that ultimately the consumer benefits by paying cheaper bills for better services.
Yeah, the thing is though, if you look at the forests, like the forests have been privatised. Like we're not consumers of the forest. We use the forest as our, and that's been privatised. So it's no benefit to the consumer there. It's only benefit to people who have shares in those companies. No, it's
no, I sympathise with that, and I know that. Well, the Department of I don't know who's involved there, Heritage or somebody needs to step in and make the policies there to make sure that certain assets like that are carefully managed for the benefit.
Do you think the people can do anything? Do you think that the people have a responsibility to try and protect their assets and their future interests, instead of waiting for the government to do it? It seems like the government are the ones who are sort of doing this, So who do you turn to? Who do you to if you feel the government is the one who's letting you down? You kind of have to turn back to the community, don't you? So sure, that's another.
Well, the thing is, say for things like water, it's smart to maybe to privatise it once the market operates properly. It's smarter because it does lead to innovation, it does lead to cheaper prices. But something like, say, forested areas and that's another issue. But there could be policies there to preserve that in some way for, general use.
Well,
and that's something your local TD should hear about if you hold that view.
Yeah. Well,
so that he gets to lobby whoever to move it along.
Water is already sort of paid for through VAT and taxation already, so it's kind of like, it's kind of it doesn't really make sense that IrishWater is a private company and that they're going to be able to profit from this. But again, that's another topic. But if the competition authority, you said that it's an abuse of a dominant position. How would you class it? How would you define an abuse?
An abuse would be, say, something like where there's a refusal to supply, where there's...
So would that be like threatening people to turn their water down to a trickle if they don't pay? That's sort of an abuse of a dominant position, because I can't go to somebody else then and say, okay, I want to get my water from this supplier now. And that's essentially what competition in law is about. So what would the competition authority do in this circumstance?
Well, it may not be abuse. You see, that's simple contract law there. But on another level, I kind of see where you're coming from. But the thing is that if they're not operating at a profit, it may not necessarily be abuse.
If they're not operating at a profit, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I'm say an old age pensioner down the country and I only have my pension and I can't afford another bill and I actually can't afford to pay it, and they're saying, well, if you don't pay it, we're actually going to turn your water, which is your source for life that you need to live, we're going to turn it to a trickle. That's actually very extortionate, because I don't have the freedom of the market to go, well, I'm going to go to somebody who has a better policy, who won't turn me down for a trickle and who'll give it to me for cheaper. So surely the competition authority has a role in something like that.
Yeah, now we wouldn't have a role in, say, who the regulator is and how that's constituted, but we would be advocating for our other providers, and so that, if you found yourself in a position like that, you would be able to shop around for cheaper water
and
a better contract.
But would you not have powers to take any sort of action to protect the consumer before it gets to the point where you have to bring in other companies?
Well, the thing is, if the consumer, you see, we're all subject to those water charges. That's across the country. Everybody has to pay the same thing. And I don't, I mean, I tell you what, that's probably a little more technical again. So what I'll ask you to do is, because it's a good query, and, you know, if you want to go deeper into it, that's perfectly fine. So if you want to go to our website, we have a complaints page. So if you go to the bottom of the home page, and it says make a complaint.
Okay, and I can put all the details.
Click onto the template complaint form, and just fill that out with your questions, and somebody will get back to you, definitely, and just give you some guidance, and particularly your last question there as well. It's a good question.
I know I've had a couple of queries then, and probably would be better to get it in writing, but you've been very helpful anyway, so thanks for your help.
I'm glad, you know. Yeah, a lot of people feel the same way, you know.
Well, you know, sign of the times, isn't it? Yeah. Well, thanks very much.
Unfortunately.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
And there you have it, guys. There was actually a number of things that came up in that call there. Very interesting call. But the main one that I wanted to talk about in relation to that document I just read out was the idea of privatisation. Now, this is the Competition Authority of Ireland we're talking about here. This is an official body, and they said themselves that their stance is that they would be advocating for other companies to come in and provide water services, because that would be in line with competition law. That would be in line with European Union law. So this is why you can get your gas off Flow Gas now instead of just Bord Gáis. It used to be there was only the ESB and only Bord Gáis, and now there's other companies that can come in. That's because of the thing called market opening and competition law. So what makes Irish Water any different? Nothing makes it any different, because what's actually going on here is a privatisation of another one of our resources, another one of our assets. And it's done in the most underhand and deceitful way, because theoretically the Irish Water can be forced, the government can be forced to open up the market, because they've now commercialised it, because they've made it, they've actually created a market for the supply of water services in this country. There wasn't a market for it before, it was paid for through taxation. So they've created this market, and because they've created this market where it previously didn't exist, now they're going to have to open it up to allow other companies to come in and compete. So it is privatisation, and these companies are going to be private. So they'll be selling they'll be competing against one another, fair enough, and that's competition. Good for them, they have a good game, but it's always the customer who suffers, because it's always us who's going to have to pay for it. So in June of 2014, WikiLeaks made the announcement of this secret document, these secret meetings that were going on between 50 countries, the really good friends of services in the Trade and Services Agreement. That was in June, and then we fast forward and we look what's happening in Ireland now today. Even though the Irish Water privatisation, or the plans for Irish Water have been in the pipeline for a while, what's happening today now is shocking, and it starts to make sense when you factor in this idea of privatisation of our resources. This is a land grab. This is a land grab. Same way hundreds of people are being evicted from their homes every month. It's a land grab. Laws are being made, and society is being constructed and drafted into such a way where they're going to charge us for the very luxury of enjoying the land that we were born on, the land that we live on, the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the soil that we grow our food in. This is what it's come to. I would like, if people who are hearing this information think that it's important to share it, let other people know that there's more going on here than meets the eye with Irish Water. And I think, and I'm happy to see that, I think a lot of people have copped onto that there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. And Irish Water, as I said before, is just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm going to take a short break now, and we'll be back with the rest of our show.